Nobody who changed their life ever did it by trying harder. That idea, the one you've been sold since childhood, is not motivation. It's noise. A distraction manufactured to keep the average person comfortable inside their own mediocrity. Real transformation isn't emotional. It's biological. It's a sequence. And once you understand the sequence, willpower becomes irrelevant. So forget everything you think you know about starting over. What you're about to hear is an inspiration. It's a mechanism. And mechanisms don't care how you feel about them. Most people fail to reinvent themselves for one reason. They attack the surface. New gym membership, new notebook, new playlist. Cosmetic changes layered over an untouched nervous system. But the nervous system doesn't respond to inspiration. It responds to signal. Every stimulus you absorb, every deadline, every rejection, every scroll through a stranger's curated life gets processed by one organ, and one organ only. Not your heart. Not your gut. Your brain. It decides, in milliseconds, whether what you just experienced is a threat to be survived or a challenge to be used. And that decision triggers a chain reaction most people will go their entire lives without understanding. It starts in a structure called the hypothalamus, which signals the pituitary gland, which releases a hormone that tells your adrenal glands to flood your bloodstream with cortisol. Cortisol is not your enemy. People love to demonize it. But cortisol is what sharpens your focus, mobilizes your energy, and keeps you alert when something in your environment matters. It is the chemical signature of a mind that is finally paying attention. The problem was never cortisol. The problem is exposure without recovery. Here's what nobody explains to you. Under constant, low-grade stress notifications, obligations, noise, people who drain you and call it just checking in, your body never gets the signal to stand down. The system meant to protect you in short bursts gets stuck in the on position. Over time, this doesn't make you stronger. It does the opposite. Your baseline cortisol collapses. Your brain starts silencing a protein called BDNF, the molecule responsible for growing new neural connections, for learning, for adapting. Without it, your hippocampus, the part of your brain that stores memory and regulates emotion, physically shrinks. This is not metaphor. This is measurable. This is the exact biological fingerprint found in burnout, in chronic anxiety, in people who say, I don't even feel like myself anymore because, chemically, they aren't. Most people live their entire lives in this state and call it adulthood. They never leave, because leaving requires something almost nobody is willing to do: remove themselves from the input. But your body was never designed to only break down under pressure. It was designed to adapt to it, if you give it the conditions to do so. Alongside cortisol, your adrenal glands release a second compound, DHEA. Where cortisol strains the system, DHEA repairs it. It protects the hippocampus from damage. It restores the brain's capacity to form new connections, even during hardship. Researchers studying elite military operators, men subjected to some of the harshest psychological environments engineered by man, found something precise. The ones who broke and the ones who adapted weren't separated by talent or by pain tolerance. They were separated by a ratio, how much DHEA their body produced relative to cortisol. The ones with a favorable ratio didn't dissociate under extreme stress. They didn't fracture. They came out sharper. This is the part nobody tells you. Resilience isn't a personality trait. It's a chemical proportion, and it can be engineered. There is a second system running in parallel. Alongside the hormonal cascade, your nervous system fires a chemical called noradrenaline, the ignition switch for fight or flight. In short bursts, it sharpens you. In excess, it does the opposite. It hijacks the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for reasoning, planning, restraint, and hands control, over to the amygdala, the primal alarm system that only knows one language: fear. This is why panic makes people stupid. Not weak stupid. Reactive. Incapable of strategy. The thinking brain goes offline, and the animal brain takes the wheel. Your body has a built-in defense against this hijack, a peptide called neuropeptide Y. It functions as an internal brake, suppressing the flood of noradrenaline before it drowns your reasoning mind. People with strong NPY regulation don't stay calm through effort. Calm is simply their biology. The people who seem unshakable under pressure were never immune to stress. Their internal brake system was simply intact. And the good news, the only good news that matters here, is that this system can be rebuilt. When a human being is exposed to severe adversity, science shows they don't respond in one uniform way. They split into 3 distinct outcomes. A small minority collapses. This is where clinical breakdown lives. The majority simply survives. They absorb the blow, stabilize, and return to exactly who they were before. No better, no worse. Just back. But there is a third outcome. A minority who don't just recover, they emerge operating at a level they never reached before the disruption. Sharper cognition, steadier emotional control, a recalibrated sense of what actually matters. This third category has a name in the research: post-traumatic growth. And here's the part that separates people who understand strategy from people who wait for life to happen to them. This outcome is not random. It is not a gift given to the lucky. It is engineered through deliberate exposure, deliberate isolation, and deliberate reconstruction. This is what disappearing for 90 days actually means. Not running away, not hiding. Engineering the conditions for the third outcome on purpose. The United States military didn't leave psychological resilience to chance either. They built a program trained across more than 1 million personnel, designed to install these traits deliberately. The core of it wasn't physical, it was cognitive. They targeted one specific failure pattern above all others, catastrophizing the mind's default habit of assuming the worst possible outcome, the instant uncertainty appears. They trained people to intercept that reflex, to convert an automatic, "this is a threat," into a deliberate, "this is a variable I can work with." That single shift thread into challenge is the entire hinge of transformation. Everything else is downstream of it. They paired this with something almost nobody in ordinary life practices: identifying your actual core strengths, not your assumed weaknesses, and building your operating identity around them. And the data confirmed something brutal and precise. The intervention worked. Catastrophizing dropped, coping ability rose, emotional stability increased, adaptability under pressure climbed. This wasn't inspiration, it was engineering, applied to a nervous system. There's one more detail the research surfaces, and it's the reason timing matters more than most people assume. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of judgment, planning, and long-term thinking, is still physically maturing into the mid-20s. This means younger nervous systems are more plastic, more responsive, more capable of rapid rewiring. But plasticity isn't a door that slams shut. It's a door that gets harder to open, not impossible. Removing yourself from chronic input, at any age, reopens it. This is the actual function of 90 days alone. It isn't about escaping people. It's about giving an overstimulated nervous system the silence it needs to stop bleeding cortisol into every corner of your life. It's about letting BDNF levels climb back up so your brain can physically rebuild the architecture it lost. It's about restoring your DHEA to cortisol ratio so hardship stops eroding you and starts sharpening you instead. It's about letting neuropeptide Y rebuild your internal brake system so panic stops making your decisions for you. 90 days is not a magic number. It's the minimum runway required for a nervous system to stabilize and a mind to be rebuilt on top of it. Here's what almost nobody understands about people who disappear and come back different. They didn't become someone new. They removed the noise that was suppressing who they already were underneath the exhaustion. When cortisol regulates, when the hippocampus rebuilds, when the prefrontal cortex regains control over the amygdala's constant false alarms, what surfaces isn't a stranger. It's a version of you operating without interference for the first time in years. People will call it a transformation. It isn't. It's a correction. And that's precisely why it feels unrecognizable to everyone who knew the old version. They weren't looking at your potential before. They were looking at your dysregulation and mistaking it for your personality. You don't need permission to disappear. You don't need a dramatic reason. You need 90 days, a system, and the discipline to remove input long enough for your biology to remember what stability feels like. Everyone around you will keep reacting to the same triggers, running the same loops, calling it just how life is. That was never the ceiling. That was just unmanaged chemistry. You now know the mechanism. Whether you use it is no longer a question of motivation. It's a question of whether you're still willing to mistake exhaustion for identity. The clock starts whenever you decide it does.